Greetings ladies and gentlefish, and welcome to this review of this thing, the KV-1S Tier 6 Russian heavy tank, one of 3 different Tier 6 Russian heavy tanks. So this is one of the most played, one of the most popular tanks at Tier 6 and probably in the game, to be honest, and with good reason. Spoiler alert, this is a very, very, very good machine. So what do you get when you get one of these? You get a Tier 6 heavy tank with 810 hit points, which is not a fat lot. In fact, actually, if we go to... in fact, I can't because I sold it. But it's about the same number of hit points as the French ARL-44 and the Japanese Cheeto, the Tier 6 medium tank. So 810 really is at the bottom of Tier 6 heavy tank standards. Just to compare, KV-2 gets 860. Do I have any other Tier 6 heavies? TOG doesn't count because that's ridiculous. VK gets 950, you know, the KV-1S doesn't get a lot of health. But it does get a good engine with a good speed limit. So what you get is a mobile machine with armour that I'll talk about a bit more in a minute. The armour is okay, but not brilliant, but it does have big tracks to eat shells. And a monstrously powerful gun. This thing. The 122mm D2-5T. A lot of the sort of mid tier Russians, kind of between tiers 6 and 8, get these 122mm guns, and they're all very, very similar. What do you get with this thing? Well, you get 3.75 rate of fire, which is naff. 175 penetration, which puts it at the second highest of all of the Tier 6 heavies, behind the ARL with the long 90mm. 390 average damage, which is phenomenal at Tier 6. That will one-shot Tier 4s, that will one-shot a lot of Tier 5s. You know, that will two-shot most Tier 6s. 0.46 dispersion accuracy, which is dreadful. 3.4 second aiming time, which is dreadful. So you have a slow rate of fire. It's not very accurate, takes a long time to aim, but if that shell hits you, my god, you know all about it. And this thing is actually quite a mobile machine. And this combination of mobility and devastating firepower makes the KV-1S one hell of a force to be reckoned with. Having said that, let's just have a look at the sort of grind you can expect to get this thing and how painful or otherwise it is. So, if we just go back to the tech tree, KV-1S is here at Tier 6. What do you have to do in order to get it? Well, you have to go through the MS1, well, it's a Tier 1, you know, you have to go through that for all of the Russian tech tree, who cares? At Tier 2, you get the T26, which is not a bad machine, actually. I had a lot of fun in it. Tier 3, the T46, very similar deal. Tier 4, the T28 medium tank. A lot of people don't like this. I didn't like it either. It's big, it's got no armour, it has a decent gun and it's quite mobile, but it just feels awkward and horrible to use. KV-1 at Tier 5 is not, in my opinion, as some people claim, overpowered, but it is a very good machine, a very solid machine, and it's one of the first tanks you come across in the entire game that really feels like a heavy tank. It's a good fun machine to play. And then you get to the KV-1S. So frankly, the grind up to this machine is, you know, it's fairly painless. When you get to the KV-1S itself, what do you have? Well, I can't remember if the engine comes on it or not. No. So in stock configuration, if you've any sense, you will have unlocked this 122mm howitzer on the KV-1. And so when you are stock, you'll have stock suspension, stock engine, stock turret, this radio, yes, the top radio, but frankly who cares, and you can actually equip the 122mm howitzer, which I would advise because that's the stock gun and it would be rubbish on a Tier 5 tank, let alone Tier 6. You really don't want to be using that. This 76mm gun, if you've already played the Russian mediums, you can unlock it on the T34, and it's not a woefully bad gun, but it's not brilliant, and frankly I think you're probably better off using the howitzer. This is the howitzer from the KV-1, and this is what I would recommend you use to grind out this tank to start with. Now as you're grinding, there are a couple of things to point out. Firstly, the engine is important. Secondly, in order to get the top gun, which is up here, you're going to need to get the turret. Fine. There is another gun, an 85mm gun you could use. Don't. Once you've got the top turret, just grind out this 122mm gun. If you want the IS, you're going to have to go through this 85mm gun, but this is worse than the 85mm gun from the KV-1. This is not the same gun, this is inferior. There is no reason to use this on the KV-1S, so don't. Just grind out the 122mm when you're able to, and bazinga, you're golden. It's this top gun that really makes it. Having said that, you can still have a lot of fun with the howitzer, and in fact, my first class mastery was with the howitzer, and I've got that video up on YouTube if you're interested in looking at it. And then from here, go where you want, frankly. Each of these tier 7s, the KV-13 and the IS, can be unlocked in a different manner for a different amount of XP. So if you you don't have to unlock these from the KV-1S. You'll probably unlock at least the IS, but you don't have to. The MT-25, however, can only be unlocked from the KV-1S. So if you have any interest in playing this tank, this tier 6 light tank, then unlock it on the KV-1S. But once fully upgraded, the KV-1S is a monstrously powerful machine. So having said all that, let's go and take a quick butcher's at the armour. A quick look at the armour of the KV-1S now. What you got is basically, let's just bring up the armour zones. So on the turret, you've got 100mm on the side, 100mm on the front, 90 on the side, and 90 on the rear. Top, well, it's the top of a tank, what do you expect? Something that's interesting to note, the commander's hatch is still 90mm. Okay, it's weaker than the front armour of the turret, but not by much. If you're looking at the gun mantle, well, you have to be a little bit careful, because when you combine the frontal turret armour of this tank with some of the sloping and some of the armour around the gun, suddenly if you hit the turret at an extreme angle, you're looking at 200 plus effective armour. If you shoot just above here, you're looking at 160. If you shoot this plug of armour around the gun, unless you hit basically the gun itself, which is just 60mm of spaced armour and nothing behind, if you hit just slightly further out from that, you're suddenly up to like 200-250mm of armour effective thickness. The front of this tank is 75 on that plate, and a strip further down just here. The lower plate on the KV-1S is not very good. It's quite large, it's only 60mm, and it's not very well sloped. As a result, if you any gun from like tier 5 and upwards, you can just shoot down onto this plate and will probably go through. And if you have the angle, this section is also very weak, and so you can shoot through that. Side armour may only be 60, but with a bit of angling, if you angle your tank something like that, you're suddenly making your, sorry, I've over angled that, something like that, you're suddenly making your side armour 127 effective and your front armour like 92. So with a bit of angling, about that, no, a bit more, 97, 100, yeah, that's about optimal. You're looking at about 100mm-ish front and sides of effective armour. And of course you've got these nice big tracks that can eat shots. But overall, let's be honest, armour is not where the KV-1S shines, despite the fact that it's a heavy tank. So just a quick word on crew skills and equipment. What would I suggest for equipment? Well, if you want to give this equipment, large caliber tank gun rammer is your friend to, get a higher rate of fire out of it. I would also say you will want the enhanced gun laying drive to bring the aiming time down. And the view range on this thing's rubbish, so optics isn't going to do a great deal. Binoculars, camo net, they'll be a waste. Cyclone filter, I haven't noticed the engine gets knocked out too much. Fuel tank durability, nah. Torsion bars, nah. Spore liner, nah. Frankly, I think that your other best option is vents. So I would say rammer, gun laying drive, and vents as your 3 pieces of equipment. In terms of ammunition for the gun, you can use APCR, you can load some if you want, but I've never really felt the need to fire it. And in terms of crew skills, pretty standard. You want repairs on your crew. Eventually you'll want safe storage on your loader, because every loader that can take safe storage eventually should take safe storage. And Russian tanks, well, this tank does sometimes catch fire, so preventative maintenance on the driver isn't a terrible idea. And the commander, Sixth Sense, because Sixth Sense is awesome. Without further ado, onto some games. So here's the first game. It's a standard game on, is this Pearl River? I always struggle to remember. It's the Chinese map. And we are top tier, it's a tier 6 game. And this is going to be a very short lesson in brutality. And just using the KV-1S to smash people in the face and not give a damn. So, we're going to go to the Valley of Death. And we're not going to camp and ambush people coming out the Valley of Death. We're going to go in there, we're going to kill them in the face, and then we're going to move around and kill anyone else that's left, or cap, or whatever's appropriate at the time. But we're going to go over there and we're going to kill the enemy team, and we're going to do it quickly and efficiently. Now, I don't necessarily play amazingly well in this game. Marla doesn't really like this map. A lot of people don't really like this map. I don't necessarily play very well in this game, but I play well enough. There's a Crusader up here with me, and oh, KV-1S. And aim. Crusader gets out of the way of my gun, and pop, and whoa, I get one into him, he gets one into me, I set him on fire, he doesn't have a fire extinguisher. There's a lesson in there for you, boys and girls, there really is. And I just reload. And their KV-1S is suddenly on 9% and gets killed by the VK. So, one shot for like 750 damage or something. Nice, bit of fire always helps. And then we just push up. They had one guy go into the valley. There was a couple of guys who might have gone in as backup, but one guy went in, died, and the others decided either they didn't want to have the same thing happen to them, or maybe they just didn't go in and back him up in the first place. I don't know. But either way, they just killed our VK, and we've lost a Hellcat as well, and another Hellcat. 2-3. So numerically, you know, this is looking reasonably close, but we've just stormed the valley. The valley is ours. We've fired one shot so far. KV appears to be trying to do something to someone, I've no idea what. That sounds weird. We're just trying to side scrape around here to get a shot on him. And boom, 408 into his face. 2 shots fired. And we reload. Someone's saying cap fast, we lose base. We are indeed losing 4-6, or 5-6 now. Shot number 3 coming up. Boom! Ammo racking the Stug. Entirely unnecessary, but amusing nonetheless. There was shot number 3. Ooh, artillery. And we're not going to faff around with this 88 like he wants us to. We're just going to shoot him in the side. Or possibly the rear. Hello, weak spot. Boom. Shot number 4. Dead. And our team's still not doing particularly well. We're 8-10 down. I mean, come on. Oh, I get fed up here. Basically, this is a game about me being impatient. I go around one side, the other KV-1S goes around the other, but I have bigger balls than he does, apparently. Artillery hits me in the face. And he's dead. And apparently the guy in the 88 was really sore about being killed. Well, you know what? This is a PvP game where people are shooting at you. Get over it. Anyway, it's 10-10, and I'm in the mood to cap because I'm on 84 health. And so I'm just going to sit here. Now, this little spot, this incline, if you've got good gun depression, it's hilarious because you can just sit in the cap, poke your turret over, and shoot people in the face. And if you've got good frontal turret armor, I'm thinking American heavies, for example, here, like a T-29 or a T-32, or even a Pershing, then you're, you know, very difficult to damage. Now, I don't have amazing turret armor, and I don't have good gun depression, but what this does do is allows me to sit in the cap, whilst keeping most of my tank safe. Oh, really? I should probably be hiding behind that bush if I'm going to be brutally honest, but you know, them's the breaks, I'm sure it'll be fine. And I'm just going to cap this out. There we go, we win. I only fired 5 shots there and I did almost 2,000 damage. Welcome to the world of the KV-1S. So on to game number 2. Here's game number 2 for you then, and this is an assault game on Erlenberg, and you can see that we're bottom tier. This is a tier 8 game. So we're going to have to, well, I was going to say we're going to have to work hard to do well here, but frankly the KV-1S is one of those tanks that, well, its gun doesn't care what tier it's in, really. It's, the armour becomes a lot less useful in tier 8. The 810 health doesn't count for as much. But the gun will still make a mess of most things it comes across without too much difficulty. So we're going to go over to this left hand side here. Now I'm not too keen to get right into the enemy's face because I am bottom tier, so I am squishy. And vulnerable, and people can kill me without vast amounts of difficulty. Interestingly, our top tiers consist of a pair of IS-6s among others. A pair of premium tanks. I don't see that too often, although when I was playing this it was when there was the mission to get an IS-6. That mission was available. So maybe they've got it that way, or maybe they just bought it, I don't know. There's also an FCM on the other team. Some people are grinding out cash, it would appear. Now, you may say, what? You said this gun is not for sniping. No, this gun is not for sniping. But I'm bottom tier. You know what? I'm going to be a bit cautious. And there, I just made a horrible mess of, I don't even know what that was. I don't really care. Someone who took about 400 damage to the face. Hello, Mr. Tiger. And it bounced. Happens. It's at long range. I mean, the shell will probably hit at a really dodgy angle, and there we go. That's what happens. And there's another fellow. You can't really aim for weak spots when you're doing this. I mean, this guy's in a Tiger 2. Aiming for weak spots is difficult, although I'm going to try anyway. I was a bit lucky that I managed to track him the first time round, if I'm going to be honest. And that guy disappears, so we switch back to the Tiger 2, and boom, we plant one straight in his lower plate. On the one hand, we were unlucky not to kill him, on the other hand, it was an above average damage roll anyway, and we weren't even guaranteed to hit him, let alone kill him, so frankly, and especially because we managed to hit while we were aiming, his lower plate. And bang, there's a shot into the Tiger, and the Tiger's dead. Next. So, there's a guy in his T-34-85, Mr. Red Boar. And suddenly he's not looking quite so clever. You can see this gun does a lot of damage, even tier 8. There are tier 8 heavy tanks. In fact, almost all of the tier 8 heavy tanks do less damage per shot than this tank. The KV-1S does more damage than a King Tiger per shot, than a VK-4502A, than a Carnarvon, than a, there's their FCM 50 ton. You know, the only tier 8 heavy tank I can think of, that non-premium, that does as much damage as this is the IS-3. And if you include the premium tanks too, the IS-6. I suppose the KV-4 does if you're using the 122mm, but if you've upgraded it fully, you won't be. You'll be using the 107, because it's better, but does less damage per shot. I'm rambling. My point is, KV-1S does a lot of damage. And we've racked up a respectable amount of damage so far. Just from like a few shots that hit, we've probably racked up, what, 12, 13, 1400 damage. And the enemy's team's collapsing, pretty much. I mean, this is 7-2. Only 6 minutes of the game left, though, so no, let's not get too complacent. We need to keep pushing. And I say the armour on this isn't particularly great in a tier 8 game, but we've only taken 1 hit so far, and it just got absorbed by the traps, so screw it. The armour's doing alright so far. Well, okay, not the armour. The survivability of this tank is okay so far. So we're now 8-2 up, and we're just gonna nuke them across this bridge. And the KV-3 says white power tanks. Joking, and I'm just wondering what he's talking about, because it sounds a bit racist to me, I'm gonna be honest. Oh, he's commenting on all the dudes who have white camo, that trio of Russian heavies there. Oh. That's a less racist than I was thinking. So, anyway, on with the game. Move up here, and ooh, hello, there's a dude there, there's a medium tank over there by the look of it, tank destroyer over there. I mean, there's just, not racist, there's just targets all over the place. So let's go and make some of them hurt. This guy's good chance he's going to be ready for me when I come round. There we go, I take an 88mm shell to the face. But I put a bigger one into him, but he's probably going to come after me. Oh well, I managed to put some cover in the way. And he won't be feeling colossally clever. Especially not with an IS-6 behind him. Can I get the kill? Can I? No, I can't. Oh well, never mind. So, what's over here? T-28 prototype is dead. Ooh, Panther, aim. Oh, the aim time on this gun. That shot looked like it went in. Artillery. Someone's probably going to nail it. Yeah, that shot went in and put him on 2%. We don't actually have any kills yet this game, but, you know, it happens. That just leaves their Borsig, and I'm about to do something that I do not recommend. So I'm aiming at this Borsig. Oh, and I decide to take a shot, even though my shot could have hit an ally, and it did. And I apologise to him because I didn't intend to hit him. That wasn't what I wanted to do. But I took that risk, and it backfired. And that cost me about 100 and something odd XP, and almost 20,000 credits, because the game fines you for damaging allies. And that's fair enough, that was entirely my own fault. And I think at the end of that we ended up doing something of the order of 2 to 2,500 damage in a tier 8 game in a tier 6 heavy. So yeah, the KV-1S. Tier 8? Nah, who cares? It's still good. So that was game number 2. So, overall, what's this thing like? Well, it's a very, very powerful tier 6 heavy tank. And some would argue, and I might be among them, it's actually overpowered, it's too powerful. The armour, while not great, it can work, and the combination of mobility and devastating firepower is just so good. It's not difficult to do well in this tank, it's really not. Now, on that note, there are rumours that this is going to get a nerf. The most likely source of the nerf is going to be reducing this 122mm gun to a 100mm gun. Will that make it more balanced? Yes, because you suddenly won't just be 1- and 2-shotting people all over the place. Will it make it less fun to drive? Possibly. But frankly, this is just such a no-brainer. If you play tier 6 Russians, this is the machine of choice. This is not actually the best gun that a Russian machine gets. That goes to the Su-100, which basically gets this gun but slightly better. But the Su-100 is a tank destroyer. It has less health, worse mobility, and doesn't have a freaking turret, and less armour. So I don't really have any sympathy. So this is an incredibly good machine. Would I recommend you get it? Yes. Yes, I would. I thoroughly recommend it. However, here comes the but. This machine is really good. I would really recommend you get it, but I don't like it. That may seem entirely contradictory, but I just don't really enjoy this thing. I find the gun, its performance has very little to do with skill and far more to do with whether RNG likes you or not. And I actually have a lot more fun using what is basically the same gun on the IS-6, because the IS-6 has enough armour to really allow you to wait until you're fully aimed, whereas this doesn't, so you just kind of have to hit and hope to a certain extent. So whilst I would thoroughly recommend this tank, and I think it's an amazing tank, it's not actually, I'm not going to keep it. Once I've unlocked everything I want to unlock from it, I'm eventually going to sell it and move on to the IS. Sorry. There's a lot of good tier 6 machines out there, and this one just isn't quite to my tastes, basically, but I would thoroughly recommend it. Anyway, I hope you guys found that vaguely helpful, informative, maybe even enjoyable. If you did, feel free to catch some of my other videos, or subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I wish you happy hunting on the battlefield. Ciao ciao.